There are two kinds of control effects in most games: hard control and soft control. Hard control is you cannot do the thing. These are stun effects. These are things that basically take away your options. You can't do it, do something else, or do nothing sometimes. There's a lot of hard control in D&D. Then there's soft control, which is not you can't do the thing. It is you are not as good at doing the thing, or I will punish you if you do the thing. Those are both forms of soft control. I'm here to make the assertion that soft control is more fun and better design than hard control. Hard control really, it reduces not the complexity, but it reduces the depth. Wow. It reduces the depth of the game because you just can't make those decisions, or you can't make any decisions sometimes. There is an extraordinary amount of hard control in D&D 5th edition. Things that stun, things that incapacitate, things that prevent creatures from doing what it is that they need to do or want to do in order to be effective in a battle. It is sort of why the wizard is such a powerful force in the game, because they are excellent. They have 1,000 different tools that take away options, hard control effects. And this creates default wins, for one thing, and default wins just aren't a great feeling for anybody. It will always overshadow. Hard control always overshadows all other options. Pretty much always. Because especially when it's hard control on like attacks or movement on a melee only enemy, which is functionally like we're controlling their attacks. If they cannot move, they cannot attack, they cannot be a threat, you have locked them down. It's the same as stunning them functionally. Soft control, on the other hand, creates more interesting decision points. Do I want to do the thing that I normally want to do, but now I'm doing it worse because there's a penalty imposed, or I'm at disadvantage, or what have you? Or maybe like it cost me my whole turn. I can still do the thing, but it cost me my whole turn. Or I can still do the thing, but now I know that I'm gonna take some automatic damage if I do the thing. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that because then maybe it'll reduce the number of additional attacks that are necessary to take me down. As a monster, you would be thinking about these things like, oh man, do I still want to do that? I'm gonna provoke 2 opportunity attacks if I make an attack because I have this thing on me that makes my attacks provoke. Or, I want to move away because there's an area that does damage at the end of my turn instead of at the beginning. Because damage at the beginning of your turn is just damage. Like you can't really do anything about that. You haven't had a turn yet. But damage at the end of your turn creates a situation where I want to leave. But if I leave, I'm going to provoke opportunity attacks from everyone that I'm in melee with. I'm a melee monster. I wanted to be in melee. So I basically have to choose between like disengaging and getting out safely, or attacking and then leaving and provoking, possibly taking more damage. These kinds of soft control, I think, increase the depth, the tactical depth and the satisfaction of the game. Whereas hard control tends to decrease satisfaction and decrease depth, at least for me. And this is about my opinion, it's not yours, so whatever. I think soft control as a general thing is going to be more satisfying in nearly any situation. And that's why I think it's such a good thing that in 4th edition, hard control was pretty rare. Well, not rare, but it was limited. Like, there was basically no stun or dominate effects that weren't daily abilities. And so you could only do, 2, maybe 3 of them per day on single creatures. Occasionally you would get like an AoE thing that has a stun, but that's for controller classes only, and usually did little or no damage at the same time. Like, that's the only thing you're doing is using your action to cost them their action, usually for a round, maybe 2 at a stretch. But that, I mean, that costs you your action to do. So is usually like, it's usually a somewhat beneficial trade-off. And the encounter design in 4th edition was such that that usually wasn't the whole fight. You wouldn't get everybody, which, I mean, that is also, like, I want to be fair. That's also true in 5th edition. Any kind of like AoE stun effect, you're not going to get everybody. But they tend to be very easy to maintain, and you are cutting down the number of enemies, usually until you finish those enemies you didn't get. You know, if you don't get everyone in a web, you just nail down the ones that you didn't get, or you push them back in, you can try again. You don't have to recast it. If you don't get everybody with a hypnotic pattern, cool. Those guys that you got are out for the rest of the fight until you are done with these guys that you didn't get. The ones you got, they're stuck. And so you start focusing enemies down one at a time. And that's not how the encounter was designed to be. Whereas in 4th edition, even with like an AoE stun, it's usually going to last like a turn, maybe 2, and then we're back to full fight. And that's about the hardest that a control gets in 4th edition. Other games tend to be very light on control effects in general, and what control effects they have tend to be very soft. There's multiple effects in Legend of the Five Rings where, like, you take more damage if you do something. You know, if you keep strife results on your dice, you're taking damage because you're bleeding. Or, if you make an attack, you're going to take 2 strife because of an effect that was put on you. These things can build up over time, and it can get to a point where you are functionally hard controlling them because they cannot reasonably afford to take all the penalties that they would take if they did what the thing that they wanted to do, which is usually to attack you. And it can amount to something akin to hard control, but it takes quite a bit of concerted effort usually. So soft control creates interesting decision points. Hard control removes decision points. And I think that is ultimately the reason why I prefer games that focus on soft control. Now, when I'm playing 5e, I'm going to prefer hard control because it is clearly the better option. It makes the game less satisfying, but it is the tactically correct option. And that's a weird place to put a player into. Like, do I want to do what is more interesting, or do I want to do what is clearly better? That's kind of how the game's designed, though. So, like, those kinds of decisions are all over 5e. So yeah, that's my take on control effects, hard control versus soft control, and why one is better for the game, but I will always choose the other if possible. That's the difference between, like, player incentives and design choices. Player incentive, always go for best option. Best option is clearly hard control. Design, do what makes the game more interesting. And I think if you were to take all of the hard control options from the wizard and turn them into soft control, like for hypnotic pattern, make it daze you instead of stun you. I know daze didn't exist in the 2014 Player's Handbook, but it's a good feature. It was in 4th edition. They're bringing it back for 1D&D of the 2024 books, where you can either take an action or a move or a bonus action, but you only get to do one of those. That kind of thing, where your choices are reduced, but you can still do a thing. Honestly, bringing back marking on, that's kind of the big deal. I know that a lot of people didn't like marking in 4th edition because it kind of stretched the narrative a bit, but it's such a good mechanic that I think it's absolutely worth that additional stretching. I should do a video sometime on narrative justification for mechanics, because that's a big deal. But anyways, I think marking is such a good mechanic. Give a monster a penalty to attack rolls if they don't attack someone other than the one who marked them. And then also add on class features that allow you to punish enemies that ignore your mark. If they take the penalty, they're reducing their damage output because they're going to be missing more often. They're taking a penalty to the attack. And you get to punish them. Either make an opportunity attack or do some automatic damage, or maybe you get to knock them prone. The battle mind from 4th edition actually let you say that, oh, if you're defying my mark, you take as much damage as you deal to my ally. Just immediately double the, copy the damage and put it right on the monster that dealt it. And that's a great mechanic. That's super cool. I had a battle mind in my 4E campaign for a little bit, and as the DM, I was terrified of that ability. I'm like, no, I'm not defying this mark. This monster will die if it does as much damage as it deals, or it takes as much damage as it deals. Ugh. It's just a fantastic ability. So yeah, marking effects, reducing the number of actions you can take in a turn, applying penalties or end of turn damage. I think most of the area of effect things should do damage at the end of your turn. It's more interesting, less powerful, more interesting, because it gives the monster the option of leaving instead of staying in because they've already taken the damage, So yeah, that's my ideas on hard control versus soft control, and why 4E does it better as usual.